Hey everyone, welcome to Kingdom Builder TV. I'm your host, Kelly Meade, and I am so excited to be joined by someone whose music has touched the lives of listeners for so many years, including me. His brand new album, Land of the Living, will be out on November 17th. Jason Gray, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad that you know the release date of my album because I was like, I think it's November. It comes out sometime in November. So November 17th. All right. I'm going to write that down. Yeah.
So it's always awesome to talk with you. So I'm really glad this worked out to have you on the show today.
I'm so glad to be here. It's always good to hang out with you.
So as I mentioned, the brand new album, Land of the Living, you've been releasing several singles leading up to the full release. And I
Yeah.
can't wait for people to hear all of the songs that are included on this album because they all carry such a timely message that I think will really impact listeners. So, can you share a little bit about how this collection of songs came together?
Yeah, sure. Honestly, uh, in full disclosure, um, my last record, Order, Disorder, Reorder, uh, I was very proud of that work, and it ended up being very timely. I released Disorder uh, the week that we went into a worldwide lockdown with the pandemic. Disorder for sure, right? And then Reorder happened to release around the time that we were coming out of that. So like all of that uh, was accidental, but also felt very meaningful. And I was very proud of those songs. And oh, so after that, my plan was, because it was a monumental effort. It was 18 songs. I wrote like 80 songs for it, and we whittled it down to the 18 on the record. And and we believed we had some strong radio singles, and of course that's what the label will want, so they have a way to promote the album and make people aware of it and stuff. So having all of that, I thought, you know what, it might be a great time to release a super personal, kind of stripped down, heart of the artist kind of album, where I'm not going to worry about radio singles. I'm just going to put it all out there, the last two singles off of Order, Disorder, Reorder stumbled a little bit at radio. They didn't have the reach that my label had hoped for. So that caused us to like, okay, well, actually, maybe instead of the Heart of the Artist album, maybe we need to lean into something that casts a wider net. Um, and and so the new album was me trying to re-engage with that aspect of my ministry. And that can sound like a sellout and all that kind of thing, but like, when I go into a project trying to make commercially viable music, the way that I think about it is, well, first of all, the artists who I grew up on and who I loved, they were deeply artists who were capable of making these profoundly personal expressions. I think of U2 or Peter Gabriel or Sean Colvin is a great example. But I also think their best records were when they were swinging for the fences and wanting to make a big album that had broad reach. So when an artist turns their personal artistic powers towards trying to connect with a broader audience, I think it can create their best work. So when I go into a writing room and I want to write a song that might have a broad appeal. I think there's at least two ways to write a hit song. One is that you can know your audience so well that you know the buttons to push to get what you want from them, to get them to love the song, to get it played on the radio, you know. And that, in my mind, is maybe manipulative. It's maybe a crass use or an imperfect use of the sensitivities that God gives an artist, you know. But another way to do it is to know your audience so well that you know how to love them well. You know how to speak their language. You know how to meet them where they're at. And I think of that as incarnational, right? I think that that's what Jesus did. He knew us so well that he was able to speak. The word was able to speak our language by being born as a baby, a human being, right? And break into our world. So that's that was how I went into this record. I wanted to write songs that would have a broad reach, but that loved my audience well, you know. So you know, and the danger of the artistic personal album where, okay, now I'm just gonna express myself as personally truthful as I know how. I love those records too. I think those are very beautiful. I love those records. However, they can be vulnerable to it being all about my own ego, right? Where I'm not considering the audience at all. I'm just like, no, I'm gonna say what I want to say, you know. So so I'd like to hope that my new record kind of walks that balance of it's me, it's the things that are on my heart, but hopefully I'm speaking them in a language that can connect with the broadest group of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And it pretty much leads into my next talking point as well.
Oh, good. All right, good.
So, having listened to a pre-release of the full album, I
Okay, yeah.
really love Hold On to Hope and Worth Staying For, and
Ooh, yeah.
especially the title track, Land of the Living. You've always
Good.
had such a special way of crafting songs that can combine like our human experience and our faith so beautifully.
Yeah.
And what do you feel most inspired by when you write?
Hmm. You know, um, when I go into a writing room with friends, or even if I'm just on my own, and I will say that early on in my career, I didn't like to co-write. I just wanted to write all by myself, and it was this very personal experience, you know. But over the years, I now I don't want to write by myself. I love to write with others. A part of that is because uh, maybe it's kind of like the difference between when I listen to a podcast where a person is just speaking. It's not as gripping to me as when it's a conversation between two people. There's something more interesting about that. And there's a plane flying by. I don't know if you can hear that or not. And anyway, so the podcasts that I enjoy the most are no. So I experience a little bit of that same energy when I co-write. Like it seems vastly more interesting to me. A part of that is because I think we come up with something that is unique to that combination of people. I couldn't have done it on my own. They couldn't have done it on their own. Um, and I think of my songs these days when I co-write as the artifact of a meaningful conversation with a friend, you know. But what inspires me is very often when I go into writing a song, I think, okay, what am I afraid to talk about right now in my life? That might be a good starting point for a song. You know, uh, that will kind of like cut through the BS that we as human beings are prone to. You know, we're always hiding from meaningfulness just because it can be so overwhelming, you know, and stuff. So if I start with what am I afraid to talk about today? What makes me uncomfortable to talk about today? That might be the starting point, you know. So that's one way to think about it. Another thing that I do is I I think about somebody in my life who's going through something, and I think about what I wish I could say to them. So yeah,
Very cool. Yeah. I think that as you were saying, how sometimes you go in and you're collaborating with other people, and it's exactly like you mentioned there. God can use your experiences and their experiences, and
right.
maybe it couldn't have come out the way that it was meant to unless you were working together.
Yeah,
So, so
I
yeah,
believe that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and talking about songwriting, I know you've written with so many talented people over the years. If you
Yeah.
could put together your dream co-writing session, who would that include? It can be somebody
Oh,
that you like wish you would have had the opportunity to write with, or
yeah.
that you love writing with now.
Oh man, I'm so, you know, especially I've been doing this long enough in my life that I've made um, enough connections in the industry that um, I'm able to write with a lot of my heroes. You know, um, I'm al- I'm I'm already working with my dream team in a lot of ways, but um, one person I have not written with that I've always wished I could is John Foreman of Switchfoot. I just think he's probably the best songwriter in Christendom, maybe right now. You know, in Christian rock pop for sure. I mean, he's so truthful. His music is so truthful. Yeah, there's not a lot of wishful thinking in it. Does that make sense? You know, like one of the one of the handicaps of religion is it can get us overly concerned with the shoulds and the should nots, you know. And what I mean by that is if you ask me about a controversial issue or something like that, in my mind, like I know what I should say, I know what I should think about that. Um, but that cuts me off from, well, what do I actually think about that? What have I actually experienced in my life around that thing? You know, um, so when I say wishful thinking, I hear a lot of Christian music coming from that should place. This is what I should say. This is what I should believe. You know, I don't feel like John Foreman writes from that place. You know, um, I think he's very. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm feeling. You know, there are others too. Sarah Groves, yeah, is phenomenal. She, yeah, she's amazing. I've been going back through her records, and I'm just stunned at the beauty and the truthfulness of that. They're just amazing. So
Yeah, I would have to say that I think you have mission accomplished in a lot of ways when it comes to being truthful and honest in your
mm,
music. At least that's what I hear. Because I know you have shared a lot of your story throughout different songs and things, and you talk about being honest and things that we should say and shouldn't say. Well,
yeah,
and going back to the Order Disorder Reorder album a little bit there, honesty was one that really got to me because
yeah,
I guess it just kind of helped me to be more real with God and
mm,
be able to just kind of like I know that he knows everything about us and he doesn't necessarily need us to tell him anything, but he
Right.
wants that because that's part of the relationship. And
Yeah.
so Honesty was one of the songs that really kind of helped break down that wall that I had in my faith. And so
Oh,
yeah, I just think that it's really cool that you brought that up as well.
I'm so grateful to hear that. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah. Uh, there was a line. It was actually the main line of the song. I don't think it made it into the end of the song because we changed the bridge. But but the line that started it all was, "You can't have intimacy without honesty," you know. And that song, "Honesty," I imagine that we have an idea in our head of how we should address God and how we should conduct ourselves with God in conversation, respectful, reverent, all those things. Respectfulness and reverence, all of that, I get it. It's good, but there's a distance in it, right? You know what I mean? Um, like you can really only get like really meaningfully angry with the people that you are closest to, right? And the people that you trust. And I think expressing our anger with God when we feel anger with God, uh, there was somebody who was close to me, and all of a sudden I began to sense that there was something between us, and the closeness wasn't there anymore. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And then I realized, oh, I think they're angry with me, but they aren't bringing it to me for whatever reason. And until they bring it to me, it was the wall between us, But then when they finally, when the dam burst and they expressed their anger, all of a sudden, here we are again. Um, and I remember in the moment thinking, this should hurt, this should be uncomfortable, but all I feel is gratitude and relief because we're heart to heart again. They're bringing their heart to me, and I think I absolutely believe that that's what God prefers. So I'm so grateful to hear that that was your experience of that song. So
Yeah, and so kind of reflecting a little bit on previous songs and such, is there one that you feel that you recorded on an album, but maybe it got overlooked, it didn't get released as a single, but is there a song that you would love for people to go back and listen to?
oh yeah, a number of them. I actually want to make a Spotify playlist, and I'm working on that. But Right on Time off of Order, Disorder, Reorder, I think is one of the best songs I've ever recorded. Um, Death Without a Funeral is a song that if I heard it, I'd be like, wow. So I feel grateful that it gets to be mine. The Wound Is Where the Light Gets In is maybe the best song I've ever written. They're all kind of slower ones, aren't they? For a faster one, uh, Laugh Out Loud off of Love Will Have the Final Word is a song I'm really proud of. I think that it has, I don't mean to like like toot my own horn and stuff, but I experience, like, I think you can experience it as this light kind of fun song. But I experience it as having a surprising depth to it that moves me. So um, laughter. So like when when I talk about it, I I talk about how comedy relies on the element of surprise. Like a punchline only works if you don't see it coming, you know. So laughter is our delighted response to surprise. And I think the gospel is full of delightful surprises. The last will be the first. It was while we were still sinners that Christ died for us. God chooses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. You know, like it's just surprise after surprise. And when we recognize that we are caught up in the divine comedy of the love of God, you know, our appropriate response is laughter, and that makes it a worship response. So laughter and delight as a kind of worship was the meaningful idea to me about that song. So I'm really proud of that song. um, uh, we released it as a single, and it did okay, but some stations didn't play it, and their comment was because they thought it was cheesy. Oh, that hurt. Like, I don't want to do anything that's cheesy, but I also thought that, you know, if they knew, if they engaged with the ideas behind it, I don't believe it's cheesy, you know. But maybe that was my failure as a writer, you know, to help them connect with that meaningful aspect of it, or who knows. But either way, I've always been very proud of that one, and Right on Time, Death Without a Funeral, Wound is Where the Light Gets In. If you want to love someone as well. Okay, anyway, I could go on and on. I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine.
You know,
I mean,
they're all like my kids that I'm all really proud of, you know, and some of them uh, got the acclaim that I'm so glad for them that they got that. Some of them I thought, oh, this was a great one, and it got overlooked, you know, and so
well, if it were me, I would just tell everybody to go through your whole entire catalog and just listen to each album start to finish, because
yeah,
there's so many like gems in there that, like you were saying, they didn't necessarily get the airplay, or
yeah,
whatever the case may be. But yeah, there's just so many good stories, and I don't feel like it's boasting when you're talking about it, because I think it's the way that God chooses to use them in
yeah.
people's lives that really makes the difference. And if it means something to you, then I think that you did your job very well as a songwriter.
What do you think are a few of the gems that you've experienced as a gem?
A Way to See in the Dark. I like that one.
Oh yeah, I've even overlooked that one. I never play that one, but yeah.
And I know that I Will Rise Again is definitely one that
Oh,
you do play
yeah,
quite often, but that's
yeah.
another one that really stands out. And um Glow in the Dark, actually. That was one of the
Oh,
first ones that I really, really loved of yours. So
yeah. What is it about that one?
for me personally, it was just kind of a um because I am a happy person and optimistic and
Yeah,
everything, and I just kind of felt like at the time in my life it was adding another element to being happy. Like it took it deeper, like you're glowing for God, not just to be happy all the time or
yeah,
whatever. And you can really kind of reach in, and the joy that you're experiencing, that comes from God.
yeah.
So to hear a song like that in Christian context was really, really cool to me. And it was one, like I said, it was one of the first ones that I really heard of yours that I really enjoyed. And it just kind of made me want to pay more attention to more Christian music, I think.
Wow. Thank you. I'm That's gratifying to hear. There is a line in that song that, as a songwriter, I'm like, every time I sing it, I smile. I'm like, this is a cool line. Um, Sometimes the world can feel like a mess, full of drama, full of stress, and life puts a fist right in your ribs. And I've always thought, you know, I thought that lyric might be too edgy for radio, stuff, but it got a lot of airplay. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to like we were saying, it all goes back to being real and
yeah,
just, telling it like it is without worrying about sugarcoating a lot of things.
right, yeah,
So, coming back around to the new album, Land of the
yeah.
Living, what do you hope that people will take away and apply to their faith journey after hearing these songs?
Huh? Order, Disorder, Reorder was a very themed album. Like I, I want to explore the concept of transformation. Um, and that like I realized that I reached a point where it wasn't really in me to write rescue me songs really anymore, Um, and I think rescue me songs perform well at radio because if you imagine the listener in their car and they're overwhelmed and life is just too much in that moment and they long for and it's the moment when they cry out for help and they cry out for rescue. um and I get that, and I don't have contempt for those kinds of songs. I actually tried to write one on Land of the Living. It's called If You Don't Move, you know. But by and large, I don't really know how to write rescue me songs so much anymore because that's not my experience of how God works. Um, I've rarely been rescued out of anything, but God has been present with me through everything that I've gone through and has transformed me in it. And so I think I don't write rescue me songs as much anymore as I write resurrection songs, that, yeah, this thing is coming and the only way out is through, but on the other side of it, you're going to be a different person. And you may even be grateful that you went through the storm to get there. Okay. So anyway, um, that was a big theme of order, disorder, reorder. This new one, I thought, what if I didn't put any limitations on it and I just wrote whatever was on our mind that day? So it's kind of it's a looser collection of songs. There was a freedom in that, and I got to write songs that, like Jesus Loves You and I'm Trying, and Questions, which is a song I'm very proud of on the new record. Those wouldn't have fit inside of a theme if I was like, I'm going to do an album about this. So it's more just like a collection of songs. And then after the fact, I discovered a theme that kind of popped up, you know. But I don't know that when I wrote the song that it was a guided experience to bring you from point A to point B. Um, but an interesting thing about that, like if I do a concept record and all right, I'm going to take you on this journey from point A to point B. I like to write that way. I think that can be very beautiful. It's also a little bit controlling, right? Like I'm going to control your experience of it and I'm going to guide you from here to here. And the cool thing about the way I wrote the songs for the new collection is I'm just kind of offering them, and you can have whatever journey the Holy Spirit wants to take you on. You can have your experience of them. I'm not trying to force you into a certain kind of journey, um, so yeah, I'm as curious as you are about how people are going to experience it and what they gravitate toward, So yeah, how's that for an answer?
Very good. Well, our time seemed to go by way too quickly, as it always does when we're getting to talk and everything. But I want to make sure that everyone visits jasongraymusic.com, connects with you on social media from there to keep up with your tour dates and the new music coming out. And we also want everyone to visit everywhere you stream and purchase music November 17th to listen to the Land of the Living album. Thank you so much for joining me today,
Yeah.
Jason.
And two things before we go, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Uh, what's your impression of the album like? What do you experience? How does the Holy Spirit speak to you when you hear this collection of songs?
So for Land of the Living, I would say that it is kind of what you're saying as far as I didn't feel like there was a full like start to finish necessary theme overall.
Yeah.
They are kind of individual songs, and I really
Okay.
love how they have a different sound to them. Like they're almost
Yeah.
not like completely different genres, but different influences musically.
Yeah.
Like Land of the Living, I could hear maybe a little bit of a Celtic influence with the strings,
Huh.
possibly.
Oh, sure.
Just just different stuff. And Be Kind is like a full-on pop driving type song.
Yeah.
And then Jesus Loves You, I'm Trying. That's like the storytelling that you're so good at and everything. And that's a song people need to hear from start to finish to be able to hear the whole picture
Right.
of it. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many. And I know Worth Staying For is one that's super meaningful to you, and very excited for people to hear that and the way that they'll be able to connect with it, going through their own stories.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's
Thank
just a
you.
few. I could keep going.
Yeah. No, no, that means a lot. Yes, they are individual songs, and the writing of them was more like, let's jump into this sandbox and see what we make today, you know? So, and the other thing before we go is that I think your listeners should know of the great thing that you did for me a few months ago. I was flying to play in the Northeast, and when I got to the airport, there was a line out the door. I was like, "Why is everybody flying today?" And I missed my flight. Like as I was running to the gate, I watched them close the door, and they wouldn't open it up. Like I'm right here. So I missed my flight, uh, and just super stressed out. Like how do I get to this date on time? I found one flight that would work, but it would fly me into a different city, and I'd rent a car and drive there. I would get there just as the show was supposed to begin. However, my bags I had already checked on my original flight, so they were going to the original destination, which was also 2 hours away from where I was playing, but 6 hours away from where I was landing. So I was like, how am I going to get my guitar gear, the things I need for playing a concert? So I posted about it on the socials, and I said, hey, if there's anyone out there who's willing to grab my things in Rochester, New York, I'll give you a free ticket to the show, some free merch. I'll, whatever you need. And Kelly reached out and said, hey, I live in the Rochester area, and I'll do it for you. So she went to the airport, got my things, brought it to the show. Happy ending. Everything worked out. So thank you. You really saved my skin that day. Very generous of you. So
Well, you're still very, very welcome. And like
you're
I've
my
told
hero.
you, well, like I've told you, that meant a lot to me to be able to help you in that way after your music and just, different conversations we've had and stuff that have meant so much to me. So, and I really
Yeah,
wanted to go to that show, and I was bummed that it was sold out before I
it
could get
was
tickets.
sold out. Yeah, yeah.
So it worked
But I
out.
know a guy. I know a guy.
So yeah, that really that was a very special night indeed.
Yeah, yeah. I thought so too. So thank you, Kelly. You honor me, and it's just a joy to get to speak with you. So thank you very much.